Hey guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. My nickname is iFacePalm, and in this episode we are going to take a closer look at the German T8 Premium Super Heavy, the Löwe. And during this tank review we'll be looking into whether if it's worth the gold, how its tank statistics looks, I'll compare its stats against several other German T8 heavy tanks, which will be followed up with an extensive armor profile rundown with focus on its weak spots and strengths, and afterwards I'll take you guys alongside two very recent battles which hopefully will give you guys a good idea of this tank in action. And finally I'll finish up with an extended sum up and my rating of this tank. Okay guys, let's get started. Okay, so what is the Löwe all about and what role does it take on the battlefield? Is this tank a true heavy tank brawler that just effectively can YOLO right into the center of the battlefield, or does it most effectively take upon the heavy tank sniper role, similar to the Tiger 1 or even the Tiger 2? The thing is that the Löwe was one of my first premium tanks that I picked up from the premium shop back in the days when I started playing World of Tanks in 2013. I must say that the original expectations that I had before picking up the tank from the premium shop definitely turned out differently. But in which way? Furthermore, there are several German Tech 2 tanks that recently had their alpha damage increased, where tanks like the Tiger 1 and Tiger 2, among others, received a much needed alpha damage buff, and especially Tiger 2 received a buff from its 320 alpha to 360, but the Löwe didn't. And that leaves the question, what about it? And is it good enough for the current meta, or has it actually become outdated? Well, let's take a look by doing a quick stats rundown with my current crew and tank setup. So my current crew is primarily focused on Brothers in Arms, 6th Sense, gun handling and view range, and then it tends to move towards the repair skills. For the equipment, I have chosen to go with a turbocharger, binoculars, and a vertical stabilizer. I'll go into more details why I have selected these equipments as we are going through these stats rundown. For the ammunition, I have selected 48 AP shells which are capable of dealing an average damage of 320. And you might be thinking, 320 is not a lot for a heavy tank, right? And it isn't. And that's where one of the problems is. This will definitely be highlighted in the tank comparison, which we're going to look at in just a few minutes. And for the penetration, we are receiving a value of 234. It is not a groundbreaking figure, but it is still very decent for tier 8. And furthermore, we are receiving a very nice standard shell velocity of 1150, which makes it rather capable of hitting targets even at far range. But then you might be thinking, 234 penetration, well, that's not really enough, especially if you're fighting tier 9 or tier 10 heavies. Fortunately, this tank comes with the option of using APCR shields that delivers an amazing average penetration of 294, which is definitely capable of going through quite reliably most of the tanks it will encounter on the battlefield, even at the higher tiers. And not only that, they also receive an impressive boost in shell velocity that now is suddenly capable of reaching 1438 meters per second. And this is quite vital, especially for this particular tank, because it seems to rather easily being able to take upon the role of a sniper. And last, I have fitted two high explosive shells which each are capable of delivering an average damage of 420. So we had the average damage of 320, 234 average penetration for the standard rounds, and furthermore we have a rate of fire of 5.57, which translates to a reload speed of 10.77. And this is definitely not a lot. 10.77 might not seem that bad, but keep in mind guys, this is only 320 alpha damage. There are several T8 tanks that are capable of dealing 309 and even 440 alpha damage, and that has a reload speed that is not far from those 10.77. And this we directly see also in the average damage per minute of 1782. So that also means if you're primarily using your Löwe as a heavy tank brawler, you can easily switch the binoculars for example, improved ventilation, because notice that after we have demounted binoculars, we are achieving an impressive view range of 451. So with an improved ventilation, we are suddenly receiving a view range of 462, which is definitely impressive for a heavy tank. Alternatively, what you could do is to either switch the turbocharger with a gun rammer, but personally, if I was going for a more brawler setup, I would simply change the improved ventilation and fit the gun rammer instead, because what it does is that we suddenly are able to achieve an average DPM of 1980 and a reload speed of 9.7 seconds. But for my current playstyle, and because I want to get the most out of it, especially if I'm fighting against tier 10s, then I really want to be able to use this tank at very long ranges. And the shell velocity and definitely the gun precision will help you with that. And this we directly see here, because yes, the gun traverse speed 25.62, that's very slow. But when we take a look at the gun depression, minus 10 degrees for a German tank, that is really impressive guys. And this is also where it really excels, because at a long range, where this tank is capable of hiding its lower hull, this tank can really become a pain pain for the enemy, as it often is fully capable of hitting targets at the very long range with a dispersion value of 0.3 and an aiming time of 2.56. So yes, the DPM is definitely at the lower end, but what you get in return is an impressively precise gun for a heavy tank. And when we are looking at the HP, 1650, which is very nice. For the hull armor, 150-180, and for the turret armor, 120-80-80. We are of course going to take a closer look at this in the Armour Profile rundown. For the engine power, 1075 horsepower, guys. But the Löwe is a very heavy one that actually weighs more than 90 tons. And that unfortunately translates to a horsepower per ton of 11.9. 11.9 might seem quite okay, but the terrain resistances aren't really helping out. And this we will especially see in the tank comparison, where we are going to compare it against several other German heavies. And when we are looking at the top speed, 39.17. So of course keep in mind, guys, that I have the turbocharger that adds that extra 4 kilometers power forward and 2 extra reverse, but this tank is very slow, guys. It feels more like it has like a 9 horsepower per ton because the terrain resistances are really not helping it out. And you might also be thinking, but why even putting a turbocharger, because this tank is so extremely slow? But the good part about turbochargers, in my opinion, is that they especially excel when you add them towards either a very fast tank or a very slow tank, as it's only the engine power that is percentage based, but not the forward and reverse speed. So personally, I definitely noticed the difference, and especially in scenarios where you are forced to brawl with this tank, that horsepower is seriously needed. And if I could, I would fit probably 2 more turbochargers, because this tank is extremely sluggish, guys. And this we also see here, of course, in the traverse speed, 29.9. And when we take a look at the last figures here, we have the camo 7.17 and 4.69. Keep in mind, of course, that I only have 2 of my guys trained slightly towards the camo skills, but of course, guys, this is a super heavy tank that doesn't really have any impressive camo value to begin with, so the amount of camo you can get out of it, even when you're a perfect crew, it is honestly barely noticeable. And for the last important figure to notice here is of course the beautiful view range of 564, which makes this tank quite effective during scenarios where you cannot brawl with it, where you are forced to take a more defensive role and sniping from the back, because 564, that's definitely enough to spot most enemy tanks. But how does the Löwe compare against all the other German heavy tanks? Well, let's take a look. Okay, guys, so here we have the tank comparison where we are comparing the Löwe against the VK4502A, the Tiger II, the E75TS, the VK101P and the VK16801P. Keep in mind, of course, that the VK4502A and the Tiger II and the VK101P are non-premium, where of course the Löwe E75TS and the VK16A are premium tanks. And you might be wondering, why do I have so many different tanks? Because some of them seems to be way faster and have different playstyle versus some others. And the reason why I chose to include these 5 other German heavy tanks is because that the Löwe is quite special for a heavy tank, in my opinion. Because personally, when I pick up this tank, I just expected it to be able to drive right into the front of the battle and just kill the enemy tanks one by one, because the Löwe is quite tricky. And the good question is, what role actually does it excel in? Well, now let's take a look. So of course the DPM 1600 base, that is really bad, guys. Even see in this comparison, it is definitely behind. And this we can directly also see in the alpha damage, because 320 is also the worst in this comparison, together with the VK45. So currently nothing impressive. But when we take a look at the penetration value, then luckily this thing starts to look a bit different, because here with 234, it's not like super groundbreaking, but it's definitely noticeable. And this we also see in the shell velocity, where it is best in class together with the Tiger II and E75TS. Do definitely notice the horrible shell velocity on both the VK100 and the VK168 of only 810. But then again, they definitely get a good trade-off by receiving that amazing alpha damage of 440. The thing to notice here, guys, is that the VK101 and the VK168 are really built up around brawling inside the city, but the shell velocity doesn't matter that much, and where you definitely do not mind trading those 440 alpha damage shots, but where the Löwe with its quite impressive shell velocity just seems to excel more at a long range. And this we can also see when we change to premium shells, because let's take a look. There we go. And do notice that each of these tanks uses APCR shells as gold, and here we can directly see who is best in class, with an amazing 294 penetration, together with a staggering shell velocity, especially for a super heavy tank of 1438. It's just the Tiger II and the E75TS that are very close with its 1375. And the combination of the high penetration together with that shell velocity really makes the Löwe excelling at sniping. But what about the gun handling? Well, let's take a look. So right off the bat, aim time 2.86, definitely the worst here. It's like, what? But shouldn't this tank be a good long range sniper? Well, luckily it is definitely definitely helped out by that beautiful base gun dispersion of 0.33, and this figure is definitely noticeable when we compare against some of the other tanks here, guys, that features values between 0.37 and 0.38 and 0.4. But the interesting part here is definitely noticing the Tiger II, because the Tiger's 2 gun handling is that much better in every single way compared to the Löwe, which is definitely quite surprising for a tech tree tank versus a premium tank. This is also why a part of me is thinking and would not be surprised that Wargaming would buff the alpha damage of the Löwe, but we will talk more about that during the summer. But in general, guys, the values here while moving, while traversing the tank and the turret, they're okay. It's not like groundbreaking. They're definitely not in the super heavy tank brawler territory, but they don't really stand out. The only thing really here that stands out is definitely the gun dispersion of 0.33. And the third part about this particular tank is that because the tank is so extremely slow and because it's traversing its turret that slow, it actually makes a big difference, which we also can see during those 2 battles I have for you guys today. And last, for the gun handling, we have of course the gun depression, which is 10 degrees, and that is definitely best in class here. But do notice that none of the other tanks actually have a bad gun depression, as they all feature a gun depression of 8 degrees. For the mobility, we had 35 forward and 15 reverse, and in this comparison, yeah, it's nothing special. Definitely better than those 2 super heavies, but when we compare it, especially against the Tiger II, then it only really stands out in that reverse speed. Might not seem a lot, those 15 an hour versus 12, but they really make a big difference, because keep in mind that the Tiger II will at best be able to achieve a reverse speed of 14 an hour with a turbocharger, where the Löwe is capable of reaching a reverse speed of up to 17. And when we take a look at the power to weight ratio, we have 11.11. Right off the bat, it might seem that it's better than the Tiger II, the VK and the super heavies. Definitely not better than the E75 TS and the VK45-2A, but suddenly when we're going to include the terrain resistances, then suddenly that advantage it has versus those Tiger II and those super heavies, then it quickly gets cancelled out. And personally, both the Löwe, the Tiger II and the VK168 feels all just as sluggish going forward. For the turret traverse, we have 23 degrees. Do notice that the Tiger II have a quite decent turret traverse in this comparison of 27 degrees, and this we also see in the tank traverse of 28, where again the Löwe is in the middle. For the armor and health, as all of these tanks are in some way relying on their armor, these figures are really not saying us a lot, but in general, of course, the super heavy tanks are, when angled properly, that much easier. Maybe not exactly the VK16801P, also known as the Mauerbrecher, because it is riddled with weak spots. For the HP, as we saw in the garage, 1650, which is very decent. And this we directly see when we compare it against the normal, quite heavy German heavy tanks that features values that ranges between 1.5 to 1.6. Also noticeable, the Löwe only has 50 HP less than the super heavy VK100 or 168 tanks. And last, for the camera figures, yeah, surprisingly, nothing to notice here, guys. Besides, of course, the E75 TS, which was really built up around a merge between a heavy and a medium tank, doesn't even stand out here, because even the Löwe and the VK45 and the Tiger II actually has better statistics in comparison. But the interesting part here is, of course, the view range. Because check this, guys, 400 meters. That is a fantastic base view range. That is also why this tank can reliably take upon the role of supporting your flanks from the far rear. So at this stage, guys, we have a super heavy tank that offers a horrible DPM, good penetration, very poor alpha damage for heavy, fantastic shell velocity for both its AP and APCR shells, rather decent gun handling for a super heavy tank, and a tank that is extremely slow and with a good view range. Then of course we are left with the question, how good is actually this armor? Because 150, 180 and 120, 80, 80 might not seem that impressive, right? Because check versus the Tiger II, 245, 120, 80, or even against some of the super heavies, does this mean that this tank is completely rendered useless? Or is there something we cannot see here from the raw numbers? Well, let's take a look at the armor profile. Okay guys, so here we have the armor profile of the Löwe, and here we are using the 234mm penetrating rounds, and let's take a look how it looks in the live view. There we go. And directly to notice here, guys, of course, is that beautiful gun mantle here, because on paper, yeah, it didn't seem that good, but the gun mantle wasn't included, because check this, guys. Sun is shooting at the gun mantle, yeah, that is definitely going to cause our shield to bounce off. And this we definitely also see during several parts of the turret that is very well rounded, that only leaves those small spots on the left and the right side of the turret, which can definitely be hard to hit. But what about the cupola? Well, the thing about the cupola, yes, of course you can hit it, but do keep in mind, guys, that it is placed in the rear part. That means that if this tank is going slightly hold down, it can be very tricky to hit this part here, because check this, guys. This tank has 10-degree gun depression. Let's see what happens. So let's put the turret down. There we go. And here you can directly see that the cupola is completely invisible. And as long as you hide your lower plate, then suddenly the upper plate receives a value of more than 280mm and only really leaves those microscopic spots to the lower left, the lower right side of the gun mantle. But what about if you use gold shells? Well, let's try. So we're going to change to the 294mm. Yes, that definitely changes the things. But it doesn't mean that we're going to go reliably through, because even here we're not even standing at 40% chance. And if we are trying to penetrate this tank with those 294mm through the gun mantle, then it really only opens up for the opportunity when your shells are primarily focused on this spot here and of course at the other side. This is of course very similar right here with this spot here and on the opposite side. But in general, if I'm encountering a Löwe that is hull down, I'll definitely try to shoot for this spot, because if the RNG will move my shells slightly to the right, I'll still stand a chance to pen it. Yes, you of course always have the chance to pen this part here, but of course keep in mind that if the shell just slightly moves to the left or right, it will automatically be a ricochet. Let's switch back to the AP shells. And the very important thing here is, of course, if you encounter Löwe that is hull down, definitely look for opportunities to either hit the cupola, or preferably, if possible, just shoot it below its gun mantle, because here you will definitely reliably go through it, even with a normal AP shell. The upper hull is capable of achieving an effective armor of around 220, and here we got 210. And the fun part about the Löwe is to notice that it has a spot here that is not angled. And the thing is about this particular part is that many players would think, hey, this is not angled, so I should shoot there. Yes, that is correct for most of the scenarios. But for the Löwe it's a bit different, because as you notice, this part is actually extra well armored. Because instead of those 210mm, we are suddenly capable of achieving an extra 15mm of effective armor. And when we take a look at the lowest part, 140mm, and if you're super unlucky to hit the very lowest part, then it will definitely be a bounce, as the lowest part here is extremely well angled. The interesting question of course is, how well does it perform as a brawler? Because yes, you will often see yourself fighting head to head the other heavy tanks, whether it is on hillsides or whether it's inside the city. So is the Löwe any good? Well, let's take a look. We'll just move the turret. So in general, yes, you can side scrape with it, but it's really not the most effective part. Because if you're playing against a player that knows what he or she is doing, then they have several options. Because if you're side scraping it, then definitely the first focus will be this part below your gun mantle. But if you're capable of hiding that part, you can either choose to focus on your gun mantle or on the right side. You might be wondering, what is that part? Well, the thing is that this turret is so massive that it actually needs that extra space, as you see here. This we also see here in the live view, where you can see that there's this extra dip here, and here we can directly see what this part here does as it is not angled. So if you encounter a Löwe that is side scraping towards you, just hit it here, guys. Imagine a Löwe that is pointing at you this way, might even be on top of a hill. Let's imagine that it will be like this. It will still open up for opportunity to hit it right here, guys. This pot is actually not that small. Yes, in such scenario, the Löwe definitely manages to hide well its weak armor below the gun mantle, and definitely manages well to hide its cupola, but not this spot here. Okay, so let's take a look at its side profile. So for the turret, we are starting with values of 130, which finishes off with values of around 84, 90, 110, 90, and 130. So definitely, if you're shooting at a Löwe and are unable to hit its gigantic side, then you will stand best chance of avoiding the RNG of shooting it on the right side versus the left side, as it has two spots that actually can ricochet quite often as shell. And the fun part about this spot here, see, it's not visible here, but it's visible here, and when we change to the visual view, you can't actually see the spot really well. Instead of shooting it right here, just aim anywhere on this side. Okay, and for the rest of the whole armor, values of nearly 110mm and the upper part, and just below, values that starts at 100mm but finishes at 106 to 109. Do notice that the gigantic thick tracks on this tank actually provides double spaced armor of 40mm, which actually makes it quite effective. Yes, for another T8 tank that has a 234mm penetrating, it will definitely go through rather reliably. But imagine if you're top tier. And furthermore, do notice what happens if you shoot it through the tracks at the rear part. Check this, guys. Your shells suddenly becomes absorbed. But what about if we change it to the APCR? Let's take a look, and it's still absorbed. So definitely noticeable right here in the front, right from the point where the turret ends and to the far rear, your shell simply disappears. Okay, so what about the rear part? Well, there's definitely nothing unique here, guys, unless of course you hit this beautiful angle. But do still keep in mind that some of these places actually have a chance to bounce and are capable of reaching values of 183. But in general, I would definitely not count on bouncing anything, especially if this tank is so slow. So the enemy should have plenty of time to aim wherever they want, especially if they spot you at this angle. And for the last parts, 90mm and around 95. Okay guys, let's take a look at two very recent battles I had in the Löwe the other day. Okay guys, so here we are on Liveox. I'm playing in my Löwe, and I'm playing together with Cobra and Cobalt Wolf, which are playing in the P44 Pantera and AMX CDA 105. The thing is that, yes, this is a heavy tank, and I should maybe go towards the city, but then again, is this really where this super heavy tank excels? Because my initial thought is that I really want to go hull down, and I can definitely see an opportunity to go hull down right here, where in the city it can be rather tricky unless you have some kind of rock or dead tank or part of a building that you can hide your lower hull. So as of now, it actually looks like the right choice to do. So we already have quite a lot of the heavies into it. Let's see if we can put in some shots. Wasn't the best shot to begin the game with. But definitely a snapshot. Just really want to get into position. I want to be caught there outside. This tank is super sluggish, so I don't want to break completely with it. Let's see if we can use my rotor now. I need to change to some gold shields. The SU-100 M1 can be a bit tricky. Pen. Definitely need some gold shields for that. At least we're getting some spotting damage. Definitely this guy has good armor, but then again, he can encounter the same dilemma. At this position, the Löwe definitely can be a challenge to pen for the enemy team. But yeah, with the standard shields, I stand simply no chance to pen. Definitely think I could push in that, but the thing I cannot really reposition, so I really want to use about as much as possible in this location. If I get caught out there, check how many tanks they got in comparison to us. It's crazy actually. And the enemy team realizes that they can just push us. We better kill them off before they realize that. Lost another tank unfortunately on our left side. Looking for opportunities. So the guy was going a bit further up. Based on that win rate, it's definitely should be okay for player. See the Tiger 2 is pushing, that's giving us a slight dilemma. Go down and put a shell into him, but I'm quite worried about the Emil. He will clip me. Maybe, let's see. Yeah. 297. Yeah, for medium tank, that would be awesome. 320 alpha damage, it's great. But then again, that's for a medium tank. Beautiful. For a heavy tank like this, it really feels, yeah, rather weak to be honest. Oof, nice. 326. We're getting some damage in, but still worried about the enemy team. 6-4, so this looks good for our team. We have a nice advantage, but not at this side. My teammate is trying to cover my left flank, which is awesome. Can I put in a shell on this guy? Beautiful. Definitely the shell velocity helps us quite a lot, and that 0.33 base dispersion actually makes a big difference. Because there's of course a natural limit to how fast you can move this turret, which is very slow. Shell into the Tiger. Pop, this doesn't look good. Get to the free. Still have my teammate here, so that's awesome, Okay, bouncing another one. This is, now we're getting the scenario I really didn't want to go my, wow, that was bad. But even the turret traverse, come on, turn. Beautiful. Okay, this is good. This is not looking good. Okay, even need 25. So, chaos! Check the weight of the guy. I can just move with feels like 1 kilometer an hour reverse into the E25 when he takes damage. But yeah, what to do, guys? Still managed to bounce something, I guess. Yeah, we go. No, what to do, guys? What to do? Well, 2611 damage, 2570 blocked, and 1754 spotted. So it's not amazing, but it's definitely not bad. And as we can see here, our heavy tank, our guys which took the A1 flank, they definitely won it. And if we joined them, we would definitely not have the speed to drive alongside them. But yeah, it should be no problem for our team now to win it. Victory. Let's try another game and let's see how that goes. Okay guys, so here we are on Siegfried line. And here I'm playing with Cobra. And unfortunately for this particular map, we are bottom tier. Now we're definitely going to go towards the city, but not really in the beginning. I definitely don't want to encounter the T-30 on the enemy team, because that guy can definitely punish us rather easily. Let's see if we can make the best out of it. Do not do the turbocharger, guys. It actually helps out. Just definitely go downhill. We are actually capable of reaching a speed of like nearly 40 an hour. Not that much longer, but it felt good. As a few seconds it lasted. Okay, that Pantera definitely looks like a one-shot. Come on, check how sluggish the turret turns. That should be, yeah. Just helping out, taking out that guy. Amazing. We didn't even get spotted for that one. Let's see what we can do to support. Really doesn't seem actually to have anything here because I'm not even spotted. And if there's something this tank can get, that is spotted. So it actually leaves the opportunity to maybe push, yeah. We also have the T-49 that J9 that's pushing, so that's cool. Spotted also on that. So we put in a shot that far from Träger. Come on. Beautiful. Keep in mind, guys, that I have actually loaded gold for this one here now. I really want to reliably be able to bend that guy here. Get most out of this tank. This is also the slight dilemma with this tank because, yes, 234mm penetration, it is often enough, but when you're fighting heavy tanks, especially when you're bottom tier, it very often just feels like, yeah, far from enough, to be honest, guys. And if you're using this tank as a credit maker, then that definitely is going to hurt your wallet. That was bad one, get away. Shot, unfortunately, our teammate, I think. So now we're in the city. I'm a bit worried here because, as you guys see, if we get caught out somewhere we really don't want to be, it would be very easy for the enemy team to just find us and take us out. Turn. Okay. I'm gonna shot into him. Wait. Word of the bed shot over there. Doesn't fit. Can I put another one in? Yeah. Ouch. That was the T-30 I was talking about, guys. 618 damage. At least it's good it didn't deal 750, but still doesn't really leaves a lot of our tank left. Yeah. But that trade definitely wasn't the best, because we only have 1600 damage and we are nearly dead. We just one shot again from. Yes, the T-30 I can see use actually. Calling us. Going up, angle. Where is it? Can just track us. Driving Löwe being one shot, that's definitely. Okay, now it's Ready my lower plate. What is this guy doing? Thanks man, thanks. But yeah, 0 damage block, guys. And honestly, this is extremely off, unless you're playing it, of course, from the far away, where you can go hold down. So the unfortunate realization I made back in 2013 when I started playing, because I'm like, yeah, I can just take this tank and just YOLO right in. Ooh, it's not good. We're only 833 HP in our team against 2769. This doesn't look good. This doesn't look good. Pop. Looks like he's focusing on the T49. Can you put some shots in there? One more. Beautiful. It's actually just a one shot now. He's still not looking at me. Yeah. Man, that turret is gigantic. Okay. That's what we're up against. We have a medium and a light and we're up against. Unfortunately, our Borask on our team is a definite one shot. And, well, so am I. Problem is, we need actually to take the flag because we are attacking on this map. Yeah. Come on, reverse. He hasn't put any focus towards us. This, yeah. Okay. This is both good but a nightmare scenario, guys, because fighting against a light tank, man, this is like the worst opponent, guys. To be honest. In a Löwe, okay. So if the guy is, the question is how good is that player? Because if that guy is really bad, he would just YOLO right in front there, right in front of us. But the better he is, the more. Then he will come the other way here to the left, or he could alternatively come here. Or alternatively, if he plays it actually like I would go the whole way around towards the G0 line and look from that part. Yeah, which one to bet on? Okay. So I'm hoping the G0 because it took him this long time, so hopefully. What a scenario, guys. I have to cap. I cannot go out of the circle and he can come in from any side. Yeah, I was looking away at the exact moment. No. What am I doing? Oh my god, I have 5 HP left, guys. Come on, RG, come on. Be nice to me for once. Can put a show. Is he going to poke over there? Yes! Yes! 3,752. 7 kills. What a game. So, the Löwe. What do I think of it, and most importantly, is it worth the goal? The thing is that this tank's definite strength is the turret armor, alongside, for a heavy tank, a very precise gun, together with a shell penetration that is capable of going through most enemy tanks rather reliably, especially when you load those premium shots. Its downsides as a super heavy tank is of course some of the worst alpha damage for a German heavy tank in tier 8, and of course the extremely slow speed, and that is even with a turbocharger fitted. Does the turbocharger do a difference? Definitely yes, but definitely not enough in my opinion. The thing is that as a super heavy tank sniper, then yes, the Löwe definitely still can do its job with good precision and its fast high penetrating rounds, but the alpha damage of 320 is definitely average at best for a heavy tank, and in my opinion it should definitely be buffed to at least 360. In my opinion, if you're looking for a heavy brawler tank that effectively take upon the task to spearhead through a certain flank, then the Löwe fails at this tasks, as it is simply not made for it. This unfortunate fact is only supported by its very low alpha damage and super low DPM, and this is especially noticeable when you are bottom tier, and where your hull armor more often than not is rendered completely obsolete. So the important question is, of course, is the Löwe worth the gold? Well, as overall, it is a tank that does well what it's supposed to do on the battlefield, but as I'm personally a primary light or medium tank player that loves mobility and would any day prefer speed versus armor, then this is not a personal favorite of mine, and the Löwe is definitely a tank that unfortunately tend to frustrate me more often than not due to its lack of speed and not very reliable hull armor. So how many facepalms would I give this T8 German Löwe heavy tank? Well, it receives 2 facepalms. The thing is that with the Löwe you can rather consistently get a very reliable result on the battlefield, but in my personal opinion, the lack of speed makes the Löwe a very hard tank to take to the next level where you can control the battlefield rather than being controlled by it. The lack of speed and the lack of proper hull armor makes this tank extremely situational, and it doesn't help out that this tank seems only to excel when being hulled down, and then only capable of dealing the low alpha damage of 320. The thing is that in its right environment as a hull down bunker or even as a sniper, the Löwe is a very strong tank, and it's not as bad as it could seem, especially if you base it off its overall performance as a tier 8 premium tank. But of course keep in mind a lot of its bad reputation is primarily based upon that a lot of the newer players picks one up from the premium shop with the dreams of a German heavy tank that can just easily brawl through the enemy heavy lines with shells bouncing off in all directions. The thing is, it simply can't, and that exact realization I unfortunately quickly learned myself back in 2013, shortly after I started playing World of Tanks. The question I have to ask myself is that today in 2021, with what I know, would I have picked up this tank from the premium shop? And the thing is, probably not, as my personal priorities for tanks are primarily based on speed, which this tank definitely doesn't have. But for a newer player who likes staying safely in the rear part of the battlefield, preferably hulled down, together with a quite precise gun and with the awesome option of selecting the very effective gold shells, and primary only pushing through the enemy flanks when a victory is in sight, then this tank could indeed be a viable option, as the Löwe in my opinion is not a weak tank, but it just feels extremely situational. The thing is that if Wargaming decides to boost the alpha damage of this gun from 320 to 360 in the near future, then that would definitely not surprise me, and it would definitely help out this tank in regards of its chances brawling against other heavy tanks inside the city. But at least for me, if I was going to rate this tank 3 out of 5 instead of 2 out of 5, then this gun would have to be buffed to 390, because that would open up for the possibility to brawl more equally against the other heavy tanks. One thing is for certain, that when I picked up this tank to begin with, my expectations were completely wrong in comparison to what I expected from the Löwe. And if you're looking for a super heavy German brawler tank, I can definitely recommend the Tech Tree VK100 with some awesome epic camo, or alternatively the premium VK168. But of course keep in mind guys that the VK16801P is riddled with weak spots in comparison to the VK101, which is so much better in every way. So yeah, the Löwe is not bad, but it just feels strange sniping with a super heavy. So it's not a bad tank, but it just feels focused in the wrong areas, at least for my playstyle. Okay guys, let's finish up. I hope that this tank review was helpful towards your decision and whether you should pick up the Löwe from the premium shop. And thanks a lot for watching guys, this was my tank review number 32. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think of the Löwe in the comments below. And as always, if you like to see more crazy content from my side, feel free to leave a like or even subscribe. It's a big thumbs up for me and I appreciate it a lot. Cheers guys, take care and see you next time.